Welcome in, and thanks so much for joining me. Today, I'd like to offer some tips, some advice on how to work with the number one challenge I see meditators out there struggling with, as well as people I work with on a regular basis. And this challenge is how to develop a consistent meditation practice. Often I see people get excited about meditation. They start to see the benefits of it after a few weeks, a few months, and they've got a consistent thing going. And then life just comes in to thwart that. There's something that pops up. They go on a trip. They get sick, have a cold, and then that consistency starts to go down. So I'd like to discuss not only some of the strategies that have worked really well for me over the years, but also things I offer to my mentees on a regular basis to help them keep a consistent practice. And I hope some of these things can also help you. So first off, I think we need to acknowledge what I see as a truth here, which is that meditation is not easy. It's easy to kind of get quick hits on it and to experience a little bit of relief from overthinking or feeling a lot of overwhelm and stress. It's not hard to experience that. And yet, actually cultivating some of the more mid to longer term benefits of meditation can really take some effort and can really take some time, let alone if we're interested in something like Buddhism, which that is really a lifetime cultivation of practice and study and reflection. So here I think my main point is that we have to understand that we're going to go up and down, and that's okay. And we also have to know how to get back on the horse, so to speak, or get back in the car when we stop and sort of fall off of a consistent practice. So that's going to, be my main advice here is don't get too hung up when you lose that consistency. Just get right back on. And I think this is a strategy that works for a lot of things in life is, don't get too hung up or stressed out that you're doing it wrong or suddenly you've broken your streak. Just get back to it. And this leads to my second point, which is we need a way to develop a consistent meditation practice that's reasonable and that works with our life initially. And so, it's great to have a big goal that you're going to meditate for like a really long period in the morning or something like that. But I think it's a little bit more practical to build up to that, right? So we might start with a shorter time frame, 5 to 10 minutes, but with the aspiration, I want to grow that. I want to make that longer over time, right? So it's not that we're going to stay with 5 to 10 minutes our whole life because we're not going to actually get the more longer term benefits of it that way. But it's a start and just being satisfied with that. And then having a plan, right? Having a plan that after 30 days of, straight consistent practice, I'm going to add a couple minutes to that, right? And so I think time is one of the best ways to frame a consistent meditation practice. It's not the only way. It's what I do. So, I've just built that morning and evening time I have that I put into formal meditation. I've grown that over the years. And of course, over also meditation retreats where I've done many, many hours in a day of practice, which is not necessarily sustainable. That also helped to add more inspiration for me to really grow and add time to my regular daily meditation practice that I just do in everyday life. So have a plan. Think about a plan for you, write it out. And also when you deviate from that plan, I understand it's a bummer when we don't follow through with our commitments, but just get right back to it, find out where you are in the plan, come back to it, right? So develop a plan. I'm also a big fan of less is more. So I'm constantly telling mentees and students I work with in my courses and one-to-one and in groups, I'm constantly telling people, less is more. It's really about understanding the principles of meditation, what it can do for you, not getting too hung up in in quick fixes or in short-term results, and really taking a mid to long-term approach. And this really leads me to my last piece of advice here today for you, which is something I find is the deeper dive, and it often does take some framing and I'm often mentoring people in this, which is really working with growing a process-oriented approach to meditation. And again, it doesn't mean results aren't important. It doesn't mean like feeling better isn't important. But if we're framing feeling better from meditation as like really 90 to 95% of what we want to get out of it, and or like seeing some kind of a spiritual result immediately, we're going to get disappointed more easily, and it's going to be difficult to enact that consistency. So often progress in meditation, and especially on the Buddhist path, it happens slowly for most of us. And it happens in such small increments that we don't notice them until, years later often. And so I think it is good to once in a while take a look back and see, how is this benefiting me? What kind of approach am I taking? Is this in line with the Dharma, for instance, if we're practicing in a formal Buddhist practice? We can learn there, and having teachers and mentors and, really good Dharma friends can help in this, just to keep us on track and honest. But in the short term, I'm not a big fan of really projecting what our meditation looks like or if it's successful or not based on short-term results or, whether we feel better after a meditation practice or not. In traditional Buddhism, we sometimes call these kinds of things meditation experiences, meaning they're a result of practicing, so that's a good thing, right? But they're experiences that don't last. They're highly impermanent and changeable. And when we're clinging to these, or if we were on a retreat and had a really, life-changing experience, we should really, drop that quickly, meaning like we can be, happy about that and rejoice, but drop the expectation that we're going to get that again, or that that's going to happen for us on a daily basis. Now, I'm not saying it's not going to, right? But I found in order to really affect my consistent meditation practice, I have to treat it more as something I'm working on, something I'm, practicing, hence the word meditation practice. So it's more about the practice itself or the process itself than anything I'm particularly getting out of it on a given day. But like I said, after years of this, 24 years in my case, of course, I'm trying to look back to see, how is this affecting me? As a Buddhist practitioner, is my clinging reducing? Is my aversion reducing? Am I being able to work more compassionately with myself and others? Am I able to cut more through misperceptions I have about myself and the world around me? So there are some things we can look for, and that's just a really brief example of that. I encourage you to study the Buddhist path if you really want to know what those kinds of goals are. So in that sense, it's okay to have goals, but when we work with the process, we also work with something that's a little bit more in line with reality. Because when we look at underlying reality from a Buddhist perspective, it's not something we can definitively say is this or that. And so if we're practicing in that paradigm, it's going to be difficult in the long term to develop any kind of genuine freedom. And we're always going to be stuck in that dynamic, right, of attempting to get better at something. So whatever makes the most sense from what I'm sharing here, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced meditator, just use some of the advice here that works for you, right? So some of the advice I just shared on sort of going beyond result-oriented meditation. Maybe if you're new to meditation, that's not going to be as accessible as someone who's been doing it for some years and is hitting some blocks or barriers and wondering why those barriers or struggles or obstacles are coming up. And then, of course, for people who have been doing this a long time, sometimes we need to actually start to work more with content from a lineage. In this case, I would recommend things from the Buddhist path, because that's what I know, that's what I teach, that's what this channel is about. In that, it's not to become a believer. It's not to become necessarily even a religious person. It's just to be able to understand what we're actually looking towards. And we call this view in Buddhism. Like, what view are we trying to bring about? So if you're a more long-term meditator and you're still working with these obstacles of like chasing temporary meditation experiences that keep changing, and then you think, what am I doing wrong? And then we're dreaming about this thing we had before, and then we're trying to catch that again. I suggest, instead of spinning wheels there, orient yourself to a lineage, Buddhism, something like that. Work with teachers, work with a path, and that will start to set a different trajectory for what you can get out of meditation, right? So some of the things I started to share a few minutes ago were really about working with non-duality, working with this element of like, if we're trying to work in the same paradigm that's been causing us suffering, for instance, the paradigm of like, I'm here and I want to become that, or I'm experiencing this and I want to get that. The Buddha described that paradigm as a form of suffering, right? A kind of duality that we create. So eventually, as we move into the more, longer term benefits of meditation and using them in our life more long term, we can develop consistency around a passion to free ourselves from our underlying causes of pain, dissatisfaction, and misperception, as we talk about them in Buddhism. So for me, I would say, like, at this point, my consistency is more related to that. It doesn't mean I'm advanced. It doesn't mean anything. It just means, I agree with what the Buddha taught, that meditation can be used to really cultivate genuine freedom. But of course, when we're new to meditation or even intermediate with it, that's not necessarily going to be something, an approach we can resonate with. But maybe we can move towards that over time. Right. And of course, that requires some study, some learning, working with teachers often, working with a path. Right. So Buddhism, what I find here is there are structures out there that have existed for many, many years that work. Otherwise humans wouldn't repeat them. We're quite intelligent as humans. And when something doesn't work, people just don't do it anymore. So I think something that's been around for 2,600 plus years, and of course evolved and changed through cultures, it's important to pay attention to that. Like, there's a reason humans gravitate towards it, because it offers us more freedom, right? It helps us to not only work with the struggles and suffering in our life in a healthier way. The Buddha also, described ways to actually become free from suffering completely, right? And again, this goes into the deeper end of Buddhism when you study it, but I find that's necessary. So for me, a consistent meditation practice on this level also includes study, reflection, and connection to a lineage, connection to different teachers that I choose to work with, and also friends, Dharma friends, and community brothers and sisters I can rely on and find support in. So again, this is a bit of the deeper end for some of you, but for some of you who are already doing this, rely on what I just said. So if you're already practicing in a lineage, like the Buddhist path, see where you can go deeper into some of these areas that I just shared. And that may also help you to develop more consistency, because even though our passions are limiting us often, because, usually we're passionate about something that's impermanent, so it changes and doesn't offer long-lasting support. Even though that's the case, being passionate about freedom in our spiritual practice, being passionate about what that may look like for us and what different kinds of well-trodden paths can provide, right, and systems can provide, that can be a useful passion to develop. So that's kind of also what helps me in consistency, is sort of connecting to a wholesome intention that I want to be free. I want others to be free. I want to live my life more skillfully, of course, but I also want to understand where life is sort of embedded in a kind of stagnation, and how to crack that open for not only my own benefit, but others. That really provides a deeper resource for me to show up each day, right? So a lot of different levels here. Like I said, a little bit more towards the deep end at the end here, but I hope this was helpful. And I'd love to hear from you always. If you have any comments on this, please comment if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube podcast, reach out to me at scotttusa.com. Thanks so much, and wishing you all a great day.